Today we're going to make the Santa bag, and for that we're going to need some wash away stabilizer. I'm using cutaway stabilizer, but I'm going to float it on top as well. A zip, scissors, masking tape, thread. I've got poly fleece wadding. I've got a piece that's 6x2, a piece that's 6x7, 3 pieces of 6x8 red fabric, 3 pieces of 6x3 red fabric, 1 piece of 6x7 white fabric, and a piece of faux fur for the moustache at 5x3. I'm going to start off by hooping my wash away stabilizer. And then I'm going to cut a piece of cutaway to go on top. Now the reason I do this is if once you've washed your item, the wash away will no longer be. So I like to float a piece of cutaway stabilizer on top so that that will always be there inside. And by floating it and cutting it away, after the outline has been stitched on this, it will be completely invisible but always be there. So now that's hooped, I'm going to pop it into my machine and I'm going to do round 1 of the stitching, which is the outline. So now that's done, I'm going to cut away my stabilizer. Now it's time to put my zip in place. Now we want the zip, the middle of the zip, to line up with the middle line here, and the metal pieces well out of the way. So I'm going to just prepare a bit of tape here so that I can stick it down while it's stitched in place. Okay, so in the middle there on the line. That's that side. Okay, now I'm going to pop it back in my machine and it's going to stitch down the top and bottom of the zip with rounds number 2 and number 3. And now for round number 3. I'm now going to turn my frame over and I'm going to attach the first piece of 6x3 to the back here. So I'm going to, you can see the zip through here. I'm going to align this edge with the top of the zip there, because when that's stitched in place, that will flip back like so. I'm going to stick that down with a little bit of tape. And I'm using tape in the place of pins in case you're new to this and wondering why. I'm now going to turn my frame over. Next I'm going to attach my 6x3 fabric. I'm going to place this piece with this end, the raw edge, over this side of the zip and line it up to the edge of the zip there, like so. Then I'm going to tape it down, and with the next round of stitching it's going to stitch that in place. Okay, I'm now going to pop that back in my machine to stitch round number 4. I'm going to remove the tape and turn my hoop over and remove the tape from here as well. And I'm going to flip this fabric up and tape it down out of the way up here, like so. Want that reasonably taut so that it doesn't wrinkle when it's stitched. I'm going to turn this down, over, sorry. I'm going to add my first piece of, this is actually fleece. You can use Pellon, whatever you want. And then I'm going to fold this upwards. And I'm going to tape that in place as well, so that it's held nice and securely when it's stitched down. Okay, so I'm now going to pop that back into my machine and I'm going to stitch round number 5. Turn my hoop over with the back facing upwards, and I'm going to take a piece of 6 by 8. This is the lining piece that's going to go at the bottom here, and once again I'm going to cover my zip line, but this time from this side rather than the other side. So I'm going to pop that there. I'm going to stick it down. Now I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to take my other 6 by 3 piece and I'm going to do the same on this side. So now that this is all secured at the top, I'm going to borrow one of the pieces of tape from here. Just to hold that securely in position. Okay, I'm now going to pop this back in my hoop, taking care that this piece here isn't caught underneath, because I don't want it stitched down. I just want it stitched in the right place on the back here. And I'm going to stitch round number 6 now. Okay, so I'm going to remove this tape. And I'm going to take my fleece and I'm going to put it up to the stitch line here. And I'm going to fold this down. A little bit of tape to hold it. And I'm now going to pop it back into my machine and stitch round number 7. I'm just going to remove this tape. This back piece here, I curled it over and stuck it down just so that it doesn't catch on anything or get forgotten about and end up underneath my machine being stitched to where it shouldn't be stitched. Okay, so now it's time to trim off this excess fabric here. I'm going to cut it close to the stitch line. Okay, next it's time to add the white fabric to the front, and I'm going to lay it over the top of this line here and stitch round number 8 to stitch it down. Now it's time to trim away the excess white fabric at the top here. Okay, I'm now going to pop it back in my machine and stitch round number 9, which is the outline for the moustache. I'm now going to put my faux fur over the top. Now the thing with long pile is, as it stitches, it can get caught in the foot and end up stitching the foot to the fabric. So in order to stop that, I'm going to put some clear wash away stabilizer over the top. I'm going to stick that down. The problem with the foot obviously sticking to, getting caught up in the pile, of course, is that it can cause broken needles, and broken needles can do a lot of damage to your machine, so it's easier to avoid it. If you don't have transparent, you can use ordinary wash away as well. It really doesn't matter because it's going to be removed afterwards. Okay, I'm now going to pop that back in my machine and I'm going to do round number 10. Okay, so now that's stitched down, it's time to remove the excess fabric from around the edge. Now I'm going to try not to cut too close with the stabilizer because I don't want it to remove it, so I'm just going to push it up out the way as far as possible. I'm taking great care not to cut my fabric underneath. The white fabric that I'm using today is called Scuba, and it's a 4-way knit, and it's quite stretchy, but it gives the most amazing detail when you're using quite a thick wadding. So it's really good fun to use. I'm going to trim the plastic back in a minute, but I just want to make sure that I don't trim too much. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to trim the plastic up a little bit. I'm not taking this right up to the stitching because if I do, it's all going to pull through and I don't want that. This is the same stuff that you would use for any longish piled fabric, things like towels, fleece. When people do baby stuff on fleece, it's always good to use it, especially if you're doing lettering, because it will stop the stitches from sinking into the pile and not be seen. Okay, I'm happy with that. So next I'm going to pop it into my machine and I'm going to do round number 11. Now it's going to do the zigzagging detail at the top here. Next round of stitching is number 13, and I've changed my thread to pink for this, flesh pink, because it's going to do the face. I've changed my thread back to white to do round number 14, which is the detail and the edges. I've changed my thread to black now to stitch the eyes. I also removed the jump stitches, the little threads that ran across the eyes and to the eyebrows, just so that my foot doesn't snag up on them while it's stitching the eyes out. So it's now going to stitch round 15. I've changed my thread back to pink for the nose next. I've removed all the tape for the minute, and it's now time to bring back the front lining. So I'm on the back of my hoop now, and I've just brought that down, and I'm just going to tape that in place. Just trim off a couple of these threads. Now I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to lay my backing fabric over the front. Now before I do that, the zip I have to bring over here, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to open the bag. So I don't want it too close to here because my foot's going to come through here. So I'll just leave it about there. So now I can lay my back fabric over, because this is going to be turned inside out, of course. Just bring that down a little bit. Pop that there. A little bit at the bottom here. And that zip, I just want to make sure that it stays together. Shouldn't make much difference, but okay. So now I'm going to pop that in my machine and do round number 17. I'm just going to remove the tape there because it's going to get in the way. Okay, now for the exciting bit. Over here, covering the zip, there's the stabiliser. So I'm going to remove that just from in front of the zip. It's a bit fiddly, but careful not to snip the fabric. Don't be afraid to snip along the line of stitching, because that was just a placement line from when we put the zip in place. Okay. I prefer to tidy things up before I take it out of the hoop, because the hoop actually holds it nicely in place, and it's much easier, I find. But you do whatever suits you best. Okay, so the zip's now open. I'm now going to remove it from the hoop. Let's get rid of all these bits of tape first. Okay, now the time to tell. Ta-da! Okay, so now what remains to do is to cut all the way around the outside edge here. You're going to cut close to the stitching but not actually cut the stitching. And cut straight through the zip. I'm just going to cut around roughly and then I'll trim it all up afterwards. I think that's probably going to be the easiest way. Straight through the other side of the zip. Okay, I'm just going to neaten it up a little bit around the corners here. I'm being really careful not to cut these stitches here. Okay, and a bit here around on this corner. Okay, now it's time to turn it in the right way. I'm just going to slip my fingers in here and try and wiggle this zip a little bit further along because it makes it easier. And then I'm going to turn it out the right way. And push well into the corner, into the seams so that it turns out nicely. A little fiddly bit here because it's shaped. And the same this side as well, and it's pushing right out. Okay. Just going to roll these seams a little bit just so that they sit nicely. Okay, and there we have a finished centre. Now, I put some wash away stabiliser on here earlier over the moustache. I'm now going to remove that. Just want to take care that I don't cut the the fabric, the fluff, the pile of the fabric, because that will kind of defeat the whole object of having a long pile. And if ever this gets washed, it will just disappear under, it will be hidden anyway. It just pulls off right up to the seam line, so. But anything that's left will just vanish in the wash, so nobody's ever going to know that it's even there. And now let's do the other side. Okay, this side doesn't want to tear. That's better now, it's going. It is a bit fiddly. That's that piece. One more little bit here. And, okay, I'm just going to fluff up the pile now because it's been caught under the stitching. I'll faff about with that later. Okay, and there we have it, a Santa with a long tache, and I think we can call that finished. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to be notified of all new videos coming out soon.